Okay.
Okay, welcome everyone to the latest in our series of webinars from WCT School London. Hopefully you are all aware by now that we've been running these series of webinars during lockdown while we are unable to host our normal events in the school. The order is very simple. Natsuki is here. She'll introduce herself shortly. She's got lots of information for you today. If you can try and keep your questions till the end, we'll have a bit of a time at the end for some Q&A and general discussion. This will be recorded. The recording will be available either on YouTube or through the WSET School London website, where it's under student information. But that is it from me. Natsuki, take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Julia. Thank you again for the introduction. Hello, everybody. My name is Natsuki Kikuya. I am the sake instructor for WCT Level 3 Awards in Sake, as well as the development for the qualification itself. I had helped to develop this Level 3 sake qualification with WCT together with Anthony Moss MW 7 years ago. And ever since the lockdown started, I've been running a few webinars through the WCT webinar site. And this is the third webinar today. And previously we did the modern history of the sake. And the last one we talked about the regionality. So kind of this time we are quite focusing on the small topic, but very, very deep things to discover. So, and our focus today is about the rice and the famous rice for sake making, Yamada Nishiki. I had started drinking, actually popping this sake already. It's from Gunma Prefecture called Mizubasho Pure. It's a sparkling sake. Actually, London is boiling hot today, around 30 degrees. I had to have something bubbly and refreshing. So this is kind of pioneer of very champagne style premium sparkling sake in Japan. It's been made with a second bottle fermentation, and they're using a Yamada Nishiki rice from special edition Yamada Nishiki. So cheers to that. Kanpai, everyone. So before we start talking about Yamada Nishiki, the rice itself, I wanted to start with just the rice in general for sake making. But today I wanted to discover why this Yamada Nishiki is so special to sake making, how it's been made, how has it been discovered or given birth to the sake world, and what's the specialty secrets behind this popularity of the rice variety. Julia, if you can scroll to the next page, please. So let me just talk about the type of rice that we use for sake making. So if you see around the type of Asian rice, there is under Asian rice, if you can click, there's Indica and Japonica. I think a lot of people know the difference between Indica and Japonica. The Indica is the quite long grain, thin ones that's normally known for jasmine rice or Thai basmati rice. And there's a Japonica that's slightly shorter grain, slightly stickier than the Indica rice. And we use the Japonica rice varietal for sake making. If you can click the next one. And under Japonica, there's a glutinous and non-glutinous. And that what makes a difference between this glutinous sticky rice or non-sticky rice. You can click. That is the amount of amylopectin. So the glutinous rice contains much more amylopectin than the non-glutinous rice. And it's a amylopectin is a type of starch strain that's make it into that works as like a branch format when within the structure of the starch, and it's quite hard to process for sake making. So we only use non-glutinous rice variety. And if you click the next, and the non-glutinous rice varietal that branch down to table rice and sake specific rice. So even though majority of the sake in Japan is made from table rice, I think a lot of people think sake is almost all the sake is made from sake rice. Majority of the sake is made from table rice because of the price point and also how rare the sake specific rice is grown in Japan. But for premium sake making, most of the sake producer choose to use sake specific rice. So this sake specific rice variety is only for sake made only for sake making purposes, and it has an ideal content for sake making. By the way, this slide is coming from the level 3 hours in sake, so you are kind of experiencing, sneaking peek of our qualification. You're lucky. Please click to the next page. So just inside of the rice grain, everybody know rice is brown when it's been harvested. So it's been covered with a husk, and underneath there's a bran and there's a germ. And normally for the table rice, you remove all these bits to make it white. So, and in the white part, there's an endosperm, which includes the protein, mineral, vitamin, and lipids, all the nutrients that makes the rice tasty for table rice. But for sake making, there is another part or another layer of rice that make it into special quality. So that is called shinpaku. Shinpaku is spelled, literally means heart white. So it's a heart of the rice that is almost pure starch. And the starch is being crystallized and it's been stored in the tightly rolled balls. So it gives a kind of loose, how do you call it? It gives a little space between each other. And if you see it from the eyes, it does look a little bit like opaque color compared to the outer layer of the rice endosperm. So for sake making, shinpaku is the most important factor to make it ideal or not. And the reason behind polishing rice to a certain degree, so to decide the sake categories like daiginjo or junmai or ginjo, that it's all due to the rice polishing ratio. So more you remove outer layer of the endosperm, you're removing all this protein, vitamin, fats, lipids, and then using only the shinpaku part to make the sake quite pure and elegant styles. That's the daiginjo. You can click to the next page, Julia. So what makes sake-specific rice different to table rice? So as I mentioned, sake-specific rice is designed to make sake the better quality. So there are some key features that make sake-specific rice different from the table rice. The first point is, please click, low protein content. So even though main nutrients of the rice is starch, there are other factors like protein or fat. And if you have more proteins in rice, actually that would create the tend to create the off flavor of the sake and makes the sake flavor a little bit dirty or not so clean. So it is ideal for the rice to contain lower protein than the table rice. Please click to the next. And another factor is well-defined shinpaku. So I did mention shinpaku is a pure starch content in the middle of the rice grains that has the tightly rolled balls in the middle, but it has the kind of crystallized, so it has a little loose space between the starch content in the middle. So this shinpaku, so you can see on the picture, if you see closely, the central part of the rice is this kind of opaque kind of white color, compared to the outer layer of the endosperm that's kind of transparent white. So that is shinpaku. And shinpaku gives space for the koji mold to grow. So one of the things that what we do for sake making is to make a koji molded rice to provide the sugar for sake fermentation. And to propagate the koji mold into a core of the rice grains, shinpaku is essential because if the koji only grows the surface of the rice, that's not the ideal type of koji, especially for the premium category like daiginjo, ginjo. So if there's a space in the middle, koji mold strains or spores sends the feeding tubes to grow to deeper core of the rice grains. So make a very long-lasting, nice tsukihaze, so it's what it's called. The third factor is large grains. So most of the table rice is about 22 grams per 1,000 pieces. That's how we measure the table rice for the brown. But for Yamada Nishiki especially, it's actually much, much bigger. So 28 grams per 1,000 grains of the Yamada Nishiki is average weight. So it is ideal for the rice, sake rice, to be larger grains for the processing perspective, because you need to polish the rice and ferment them. And the next point is that it is resistant to cracking when it's been polished. So we've been talking about polishing rice grains to the higher degree. So in order to categorize to daiginjo categories, you have to actually polish the rice more than half of what it's been remaining. So resistant fermentation. So it has to be resistible for that. And the next slide, please. And good water observances is another factor, because rice will be washed and soaked in water to retain the moisture, and then being cooked, steamed afterwards. And that would be, either going through the koji rice making, or going directly to the fermentation mash. If the water observancy is not good enough, it takes a really long time to soak, and the digestibility, so when you ferment or into the mash, it takes a really long time. So the good moisture content is essential too. And today, there is about 130 sake-specific rice varietal registered in Japan. Then even though we have quite many numbers, Yamada Nishiki is the biggest one. And together with Yamada Nishiki and the Gohyakumangoku, so Gohyakumangoku is second famous rice variety for the sake rice, that takes up 60% of the sake-specific rice varieties. Please scroll to the next page, please. So just to talk a little bit about another factor, how to differentiate the different rice. We do have a grading system of each rice varietal. This is also from the level 3 content, that each rice varieties, including Yamada Nishiki or any other table rice, it does have the grading system. So that start from the Tokujo and Toku, the above special and special grades that only exist for the sake rice variety, and first, second, and third grade. That's same for the table rice and sake rice. And this grade has been decided by the size of the rice grains, if the rice grain is big enough, or if the rice grain is not cracked. So after harvesting and husking out the rice grains, some grains get broken, and some grain can be under-matured. So if the weather is not good enough, there are kind of mixture of some green grains that's not been matured enough, or some black grains that's maybe being attacked by the disease or insects. So that is not ideal for the rice grades. So above special, the top grade of the rice variety, actually 90%, over 90% of the rice is in a good condition. Large shape, not under-matured, or not broken, or not mixture of any other unwanted rice grains, and it has a good moisture content. And special takes up actually 80% of the good grains. First grade is 70%, second grade is 60%, and third grade is 45%. So compared to the Tokujo to third grade, it's actually the same. It could be the same rice varietal, but depending on the grading system, the quality of the rice is very, very different. And that affects to the price point of the rice as well. So if you compare to the Tokujo, the above special grade, for the special grade, roughly for the per 60 kilogram of rice, you have about 10 pound, like 10 British pound difference between Tokujo and the first grade. It's about maybe nearly, so that really changes the whole quality when you're deciding which rice to use. Please click to the next page. So let's move on to Yamada Nishiki. So I just wanted to show some overview of Yamada Nishiki rice. So if you see the map of Japan here, red part is where Yamada Nishiki is grown. Actually, it hasn't been updated for ever since our qualification started. So 7 years, it hasn't been updated. I believe we have actually a little bit more prefectures growing Yamada Nishiki. But you can see how popular it is. It's been growing all over Japan. But the main part of production area is Hyogo. That's where the deeper red color is. And you can click to the next. So the main region of Hyogo Prefecture is Hyogo Prefecture, where I mentioned this darker red color prefecture, southwest part of the mainland Japan. And Yamada Nishiki characteristic is, you can click, resistant to cracking. So it's one of the ideal factor of sake-specific rice, and the great water absorbency. So it has all these nice factors to make the sake-specific rice quality. And then low protein and large grains and high presence of shinpaku. So Yamada Nishiki has a 70% of shinpaku occurring rate, which is quite high compared to any other sake-specific rice. And it's quite large, as I mentioned, it's 28 grams per 1,000 grains for the rice, whereas the table rice is about 22 grams, so much bigger. And it's known for the very tall stalks, very tall. It's 130 centimeters height when it's being fully grown. And because of that, and the larger grains actually easily falls down to the ground when it's being grown fully. So it's a little bit troublesome for the producer, but it is still ideal rice styles. And then please click to the next one. The characteristic of the sake you get from Yamada Nishiki rice is deep in flavor, soft and well-rounded texture, elegant and bright. So I know last week I've been mentioned in the regionality factors, you can't, see the rice variety exactly same as the grape varieties in wine. It is quite difficult actually to blind taste the rice, how we blind taste the grape varieties for the wine. Because any other factors of the techniques or choice of production, choice of yeast, all this environment gives much more influence on the sake qualities and styles too. So you can say, Yamada Nishiki tastes exactly like this. But I can say Yamada Nishiki if you make sake with Yamada Nishiki, it tends to have a really nice elegance and the brightness. So kind of very transparent and very clean and pure. But the fruity characteristic, if it's a ginjo category, it really shows bright in the sake qualities. And also as well, it gives a really soft and well-rounded textures too, and deep, long-lasting flavors. So, it's a king of sake rice for the reasons. Please click to the next page. So I wanted to explain the birth of Yamada Nishiki, how it's been giving birth to this world today. So it has been crossbred in 1923 with the mother as Yamada Bo, rice varietal, and father as Tankan Wataribune. And it's been registered in 31st of January 1936. So I got this date. This is the birth date of Yamada Nishiki. If you ever want to circle that on your diary to celebrate for Yamada Nishiki birthday, that's the January 31st. Maybe somebody has the same birthday here in this room. Actually, I also know, I had this amazing book that I wanted to introduce you today. If you understand Japanese, this is a great book to read. It's called Yamada Nishiki Monogatari, the story of Yamada Nishiki. So this tells you all the stories how Yamada Nishiki is being given birth, and who's been striving to make this, and all these stories, historical stories behind it. So I recommend to read if you read Japanese. But within this book, it was saying actually it was originally not Yamada Nishiki. The name wasn't Yamada Nishiki when it's been firstly registered. It was actually called Showa. Showa is actually name of emperor's era. So one of the era now, it's a Reiwa era emperor's year in Japan, but the Showa is a 2 era previous. And then for some reason, because I also read that there was another name of sake rice called Showa, so they changed it into Yamada Nishiki afterwards. Yamada comes from the mother's name, Yamada Bo, and the Nishiki is coming from the famous, quite common name for rice variety. Nishiki means brocade. Brocade is kind of golden silk. So when the rice is being grown fully in the autumn time, the whole rice field is covered with the golden colors of rice, and it's being, dancing in the wind. It looks like a golden silk floating in the air. So that's why the Nishiki, the brocade, is being normally famous to use for the rice name. So as I mentioned, the mother Yamada Bo. Yamada Bo is it's quite similar characteristic to Yamada Nishiki. It does have a nice moisture level, like a water absorption level, and nice digestibility when it's been fermenting. And also quite large grains. So that kind of brought the characteristic, the beauty of the rice comes from the Yamadabo mother. But interesting parts of the character comes from the father. So Tankan Wataribune, Tankan Wataribune roots back to Shiga Prefecture, the next prefecture to Kyoto. And it is very interesting characteristic. And it has the ancestor of Omachi rice. So if you are known, rice, sake rice varietals, Omachi is a very interesting rice because it's been one of the oldest rice varietal existing today. And it has really characterful, earthy and complex characteristics, gives a complex characteristic to sake itself. And actually, this Wataribune rice is, same for Yamada Nishiki, their child. It's very international, even though he's a very old varietal of the rice. Because around the 1900s, when a lot of Japanese people migrated to States, Wataribune rice varietal has been introduced to States continuously. So I've heard that a large quantity of the Wataribune rice grains has been imported to States, mostly in California, and it's been kind of updated to be suited to the environment there and become a rice called Carlos. So if you are in States, sake fans, you might have the Carlos rice variety. That's actually very famous rice for sushi making in California. So it's mainly used for eating rice in California, but it's actually suitable for sake making. So that's why a lot of sake makers in States use its Carlos rice because it has the same ancestry background as Wataribune or Omachi rice. And the actual name of Wataribune is also interesting as well. Wataribune literally means floating boat. And this has the story behind like when the rice growers were selecting grain pieces for the seedling of the rice grains for the following year. What they do is normally they sink the rice grains in a salted water. So because of the gravity, the heavy grains go sink on the bottom, and then the lightweight grains floats on the top. So they only use the heavy grains for the seedling. So when they're doing it, the grains get very salty. So afterwards, they normally wash them in a lake or any big pool of water. So in Shiga Prefecture, they have the big lake called Biwa Lake. So they were floating on a boat, washing this rice varietal in the Biwa Lake, and they mistakenly dropped the name of the rice varietal nameplate. So they forgot which name this rice varietal was. So they're like, okay, temporarily, we'll just name this rice Wataribune, floating boat, because we forgot what was it called. And then actually it became the name of the rice. So it's a very, very interesting story behind that. Also, this rice, Yamada Nishiki, was introduced to the local sake breweries by the Temporary Rice Quota Control Act 1940. So around this time, the Japan was during the war time. So a lot of the Japanese government has been actually controlling a lot of trading and growing of the rice crops. And one of the things they did was not allowing the rice to travel outside of the prefectures. So a lot of sake makers couldn't actually buy rice from outside of the prefecture. They actually had to make sake with their local rice. So the Hyogo Prefecture people previously was making the rice grown in Osaka Prefecture. But because of this act, they had to use the local rice. So Yamada Nishiki was giving birth around this time. So it was the choice to use from the local sake rice varietal. So that's how it's been introduced to the local sake breweries and loved ever since. So quite interesting that kind of negative background of the war actually gave a chance for Yamada Nishiki to shine and be introduced to the sake industry. And, another 40 years, the Yamada Nishiki hasn't been so famous in the industry, but achieved the position today as a king of sake rice during the Ginjo boom. That was about around 86 to 91. So when the Ginjo sake category of the sake has become massively popular in Japan, Yamada Nishiki was one of the best choice for the sake makers to choose. And at one point, during the National New Sake Contest, 全国新酒鑑評会, more than 90% of the sake entered or enrolled to this competition was made from Yamada Nishiki rice. And they even had a formula called YK35. So if you wanted to win the competition, you have to follow this template almost, follow as YK35, and Y stands for Yamada Nishiki rice. K stands for Kumamoto Kobo. So it's the type of yeast that's number 9 yeast, found in Kumamoto Kenkyujo. And 35 stands for the polishing ratio. So if you use Yamada Nishiki rice, polishing down to 35%, choose number 9 yeast to make, you win the competition. That was a template around 30, 40 years ago. Can you please click to the next page? So just to show you the rice growing years, Yamada Nishiki belongs to the late harvest varietals. So you can divide the rice varietals into roughly 3 different categories depending on when they harvest. So there is early harvest rice varietals such as Gohyaku Bankoku, and it's normally being the seedling has been normally planted around April time and being harvested around August to September. And Yamada Nishiki, which is a late harvest varietals, same as Omachi rice, has been normally planted seedling around June time and being harvested around October up to November. So it's quite late harvest. But because of the late harvest characteristic, the rice tend to show much more individual characters compared to the early harvest varietals. Please click to the next page. So as I mentioned, Yamada Nishiki mainly grows in Hyogo Prefecture. The main grower of Yamada Nishiki is Hyogo. And even within Hyogo Prefecture, there is a region called Special A region or district of Yamada Nishiki rice. And this image here or map here is actually showing the villages that's considered as a special A region for Yamada Nishiki rice. And you can kind of see like this is kind of comparable to Grand Cru region of like Yamada Nishiki rice, so the best growing region of Yamada Nishiki. And it's been actually it presents, or it has been decided ever since 1887. So over over 200 years or more than that, Yamada Nishiki, this region has been considered the best region of Yamada Nishiki, and has been established by the village rice system. So village rice system is the very quite unique system that's been only practiced in Hyogo Prefecture, and it's a farming contract directly governed between specific local brewery in Hyogo Prefecture and specific colony. So colony is in Japanese it's called mura, so it's kind of like a village, but it's slightly smaller community than the village. And a part of this is still continues today as this special A region. And so what they do is they make the combination. They paired up the local sake maker with the colony, and they try to work together using their rice and kind of making almost like a family of this is family making a whole team of rice grower and sake maker together. So they only uses the rice from this colony, and they try to improve the quality. And this contract motivated the farmer to improve rice quality and compete among each colonies. And like topography, soil characteristic, and other factors are assessed, quite often because they wanted to compete to each other. So, and thanks to this ongoing assessment, a special region of Yamada Nishiki has been decided in 1938 based on this assessment. And this picture of special region is a southeast side of Hyogo Prefecture, the city of Miki City and also Kato City. So some village like Tojo or Yokawa village, that's all Yamada special region of Yamada Nishiki. And if you visit the rice farming season to this Yamada special region, you can see all these flags, standing next to the rice field. And actually, it's a flag of sake brewers. So they're showing they're very, very loyal to each farmers in the special area regions. They're very, very proud that this rice field belongs to us. So it's a very, very nice scenery to see. Can you click to the next one? And terroir of special area region. What makes special area region best as a best region to grow Yamada Nishiki rice is these points. So the geography is very hilly or mountainous land that are stretched in east-west direction. So east-west direction gives the best sunlighting opportunity as well. So that was the ideal area, parts to locate. And having a long shining hours. And so it's the typical temperature, typical climate of special area region, this area of Hyogo Prefecture. It's very, very long shining and very, very less rainfall. It has about 1198 mil rain precipitation and 1850 shining hours. And known for the moderate temperature, so about 14.4 Celsius degrees throughout the year. And for the maturation period in the summertime, autumn time, it's about 20 to 25 degrees, so not too hot. And the other factor that makes this area better than the other is that this bigger diurnal temperature variation between days and night. One of the factor to give this is the mountain that situates in this region called Mount Rokko. So the Rokko mountain actually blocks the warm air to coming into this area. So it tends to create this the temperature between the difference of about 10 degrees Celsius between days and night. And terraced slope with a good drainage and made reservoir, so abundant water sources and nice terrace slopes, so you can get the water for the rice field easily. And for the soil, the clay-rich volcanic soil, so montmorillonite is actually the type of soils famous for this area. So Rokko Mountain soil is predominantly a granite. And when the water is being falling from the mount top and all the sand has been traveling in the rivers and creating a delta on the bottom, and the water springs out. They create a very, very pure clean water called miyamizu, nice semi-hard water that gives nice minerals, high magnesium and phosphorus. It's actually ideal water for sake making. And when it's been weathered, it turns into montmorillonite. And this montmorillonite is a great ideal actually soil, volcanic soil that gives retains the moisture and the nutrients in the soil much longer. So and also it gives space for the root to grow deeper. So I also read that because of the soil, the Yamada Nishiki roots has been grown deeply to 1 meter in average. And there were droughts happened in 1994, but they survived, Yamada Nishiki survived thanks to this soil and long root that's been retaining water from the deep soil. And because of the global warming, actually this area has been affected quite heavily with the heat damage in the past years. So around 1997, 85% of the rice captured or harvested in Hyogo Prefecture was above special or above special or above special grade. But after 98, only 75%. So, and it's been declining, this percentage has been declining. So the heat damages the grains, it makes them very dry, and also it doesn't mature well, so the grain gets quite smaller than the average. So in order to respond to that global warming, they're actually delaying the rice growing season slightly longer, back. So normally it's maybe 1 week or 2 weeks. They've been delaying that. Special A region of Yamada Nishiki normally tend to have a higher price point, more probably highest price point out of all the other rice varietals. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit of the price point wise. Regular price of table rice costs about 70 pounds for 60 kilogram. But when it comes to sake rice, like average sake rice, it becomes 100 pounds. And when it comes to special A region of Yamada Nishiki, it becomes 250 pounds. So more than 3 times price you get. So because of this, and because of this village, the village rice system, it's been so difficult for the other prefecture producer to get the best Yamada Nishiki. But thanks to, not thanks to, but because of the rice sake industry has been falling, there are some farmers, some rice brewers who's not available to buy everything from the village. So more and more producers are able to get rice from this special A region, but still they have to pay this amount of money for the quality. Can you click to the next slide, please? So just to sum up, why Yamada Nishiki is the king. So this is quite a technical thing, apart from the geographical perspective or historical perspective. What makes Yamada Nishiki better than the other? One of the things I think is the shape of your shinpaku. So shinpaku is a pure starch part in the middle of the rice, but bigger. If the shinpaku is bigger, it's not always the best. So on the right hand side, you can see the photo. So this is the rice grain cut in half. And you can see the dimension of the rice grains with the shinpaku in the middle. So you can see on the top is the non-shinpaku rice grains. Second one is a dotted shinpaku, kind of a bit in the middle. And then the third one is a lined shinpaku or linear shinpaku. And then there is this kind of quite big round eye-shaped shinpaku. And then kind of tilted, one side is heavier and the other side doesn't have. So depending on the rice varietal or the vintage, shape of the shinpaku. Oh, can you hear us? Can you hear me? I see the message. Okay, great. The shape of the shinpaku differs. So Yamada Nishiki's shape of shinpaku is known for the disc-shaped linear shinpaku shape. So which you can see on the third from the top of the rice shape. So if the shinpaku is too big, when you try to polish down to 35% or 50% or even smaller size, rice cracks easily because shinpaku is quite soft because it's been crystallized and it has a loose structure in there. So it's not always the best if it's been too big. So the ideal shape is kind of thin, lined, kind of spread into a disc shape, into the shape of the rice. So Yamada Nishiki has this shape of the shinpaku. These days you can see development of the technology. There are rice polishing machines that you can polish down exactly same shape as rice. Super flat polishing or original shape polishing that's they've been kind of developing, because if you polish the rice to higher degrees, because the shape of rice is not a completely circular, it removes more of the top parts and remove less of the side part, and ended up becoming a very, very circular cube, the circle shape. But these original shape polishing or super flat polishing techniques, they actually polish exactly the same amount of their layers into a shape of rice. I don't know how they do that, but that's a Japanese technology. The second point is a short side chain of amylopectin in starch. So I mentioned about the content of amylopectin is the content of the starch. So into the rice grain, there's amylose and amylopectin. And amylopectin is a branched out part that normally has a longer branches. But for Yamada Nishiki amylopectin, I heard it has a much shorter chain. So that accumulates slowly, and then the starch accumulates slowly and enabling the great solubility when it's being fermented in the rice fermentation mash. So the type of starch is a better quality. And then the third part is a protein in Yamada Nishiki. So Yamada Nishiki proteins are low to start from. It's much lower than the other rice. Oh, still not here. Can everybody hear? Is that okay? Sure. Sorry about, I don't know why, maybe it's my pin mic. The protein in Yamada Nishiki is it's actually hard to decompose. So if there is a protein in sake, because of the Koji enzymes not only breaking down the starch into sugar, but they're also breaking down the protein into amino acid. So amino acid is umami or bitterness into sake. So if there's a lot of umami in sake, it gives, it could be very tasty, but it could give an unpleasant bitterness or astringency in flavor, which could be not ideal. And the protein in Yamada Nishiki, it's hard to decompose, and also even if it's been composed or turned into amino acid, there are so many different types of amino acids in the world. Some amino acid gives more bitterness. So some type of amino acids such as arginine or histidine or phenylalanine, this type of amino acids tend to give more bitterness than the other amino acid parentals. And like alanine or glycine, so these are the sweeter type of amino acids. So what I read that Yamada Nishiki tend to turn their protein into non-bitter amino acid. So that's why the sake quality tend to be quite elegant and pure and a bright characteristic, not showing much of the bitter, unpleasant astringency in the sake. So scientific background, and also because of all these reasons that, as I mentioned, Yamada Nishiki has been the king and the most loved rice varietal for a long period for the premium sake category. That's all I wanted to introduce you today. As I have quite a lot of time, I would love to do Q&A session now, if possible. Julia, should I just ask everybody to jump in, or what's the best to? Or if you have any questions still from the chat, we can answer that too.
I didn't see any questions come up in the chat yet, but as people prefer, if you'd like to unmute yourself, please do so.
Okay.
I have a question.
So
Okay. You mentioned that in 1940 there was a temporary rice quota control act in place. Mm-hmm. Has anything replaced that to continue to control the rice in Japan since then?
As long as I know, after the war, this kind of government restriction has been removed. One point, the government Food Control Act regulated for the rice sake brewers not unable to grow rice. So even though a lot of sake brewers originally being a rice farmer, these connections been cut ever since. But it's been removed, I think, 7 years ago or so. So now they can grow their own rice, buy directly from the contracted farmers. It's quite a lot of freedom, I think. But Yamada Nishiki, the Hyogo prefecture, has been trying to save the grain of Yamada Nishiki rice. They don't want to introduce to many other prefecture or international destinations. Same as Wagyu, they don't want their species to go outside to be introduced to the different regions. So maybe some prefectures like Hyogo prefecture are trying to regulate the, bringing outside of the prefectures, but that's coming from more prefectural level. Okay. Some questions here.
Yeah, there's a
Why
few.
else is Yamada? Yeah. Where else is Yamada Nishiki grown outside of Japan? I do not know apart from States. Does anybody know Yamada Nishiki grows in China or any other Asian countries? Could be possible.
It's grown in Arkansas.
Oh, okay. Now it's grown in Arkansas. It's been introduced. It's been brought or something. I don't really know how it's been started, but
the farmer's name is Chris Isbell, and he's been growing Yamada Nishiki for 7 or 8 years and selling it to American sake brewers, from Takara to the smaller sakuguras that are trying to start up.
Interesting, very interesting. I know when I visited Hyogo Prefecture, they're all against the idea of Yamada Nishiki growing outside of Hyogo Prefecture. They're like, why possible that, how all these grains, seedling has been escaped from us. They're like this, but I think it's a great contribution to bring the brand of Yamada Nishiki rice itself. So I think it's great that it's been growing outside. And I think Eiko-san mentioned about Spain. There is a Gohyaku Mangoku rice growing. That's interesting. And Arkansas. Yeah. Okay. And any other questions? So what is the biggest difference between Yamada Nishiki and Gohyaku Mangoku? So Gohyaku Mangoku is the biggest difference is the growing season. So Gohyaku Mangoku is early harvest. As you can see, the planting, harvesting time is very different. And because of that, Gohyaku Mangoku tend to give slightly less characteristic, like quite leaner and simpler characteristic to the sake quality. And also, I think they're more suitable in the northern part of Koda region of Japan as well. So the growing ideal environment for cultivation is different as well. And the size of the rice is different. But Gohyaku Mangoku is slightly smaller than Yamada Nishiki, but it has a nice moisture level, and it grows nice. It makes nice koji. So it's also a second choice to make a great premium sake. Why are the proteins in Yamada Nishiki are harder to decompose? Is it because of the nature of the protein content, or is it because they are less susceptible to the action of the protease from the koji? I'm sorry, I don't really know anything deeper than this. It is just the fact that maybe not right, but it was coming from this Yamada Nishiki storybook that some scientific researchers mentioning about the protein of Yamada Nishiki doesn't process the beta amino acid, and maybe type of protein is the protein content is different from the other rice. I'm sorry, I couldn't answer anything more than this. Also, Aline is asking Tom, because we have two brewers in this room, as we know, Tom and Gordon. If you have more, please let us know. Tom and Gordon, can you comment? I could comment, but I've heard Yamada Nishiki is easiest to brew with. What do you think, Tom or Gordon? I know you have a brewing background. Is it much easier than the other rice varietals? Tom?
It's difficult for me to say, but the Yamada Nishiki is so popular that what happens is when you are in the brewery and you receive some rice, you can compare notes with the other brewers about how the rice is working. So if you have a rice that only 3 brewers in your region are using, so when I was in Fukuoka, we might use only some Fukuoka popular rice like a Yume Ikan. You only have a few people to talk to, but many people are using Yamada Nishiki, so the brewers are comparing notes with each other. Is your rice brittle? Do you have any tips on how I can work with it? And they're exchanging notes. So because it's so universally used, it becomes easier to work with because of, for lack of a better term, kind of crowdsourcing what you're doing with the rice now.
If I was going to comment on the 4 rice grains that we use at Kampai, so we brew with Yamada Nishiki, Kaorose, Goyakumangoku, and Omachi. And I would say, obviously there's variation season to season for the length of time you've had the grain, what you're brewing with them, but Yamada Nishiki and Kaorose are actually both relatively easy to brew with, less breakages. Goyakumangoku potentially is a more brittle grain and larger, so depending on the milling rate, you can get some breaking. And Omachi is pretty pleasant to brew with as well, but we don't typically have that polish too far. But yeah, Yamada Nishiki is always a pleasure, even when it's highly polished. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think whenever I talk to sake producers, they always said it's the easiest. I don't know, easy or making easier rice grain. Some people even say you can grow koji with Yamada Nishiki even in your chest drawers. They say that kind of things, but I never been experienced, so it's very beneficial to hear from both of you. I know that a lot of prefecture. So Sean's question is. Koshi Tanrei is an offspring of sorts of Yamada Nishiki. Why is it still not widely grown? So a lot of prefectures are striving to create the next Yamada Nishiki. So Koshi Tanrei is a Niigata's sake-specific rice varietal that they offspring of Yamada Nishiki, and they try to make alternative rice varietal for Yamada Nishiki in a local that is suitable in a local environment. Yamagata Prefecture has Yuki Megami. That's they really try to make a local rice. They try to source everything in the local prefectures. So they made the rice that's suitable for highly polishing degrees and making a quite pure, elegant style. And I think some prefectures are very, very successful in that. So I wouldn't say, which is better than the other, but now you have more choice. You can choose from the local area or local species, or the stick with the rice Yamada Nishiki. Or Yamada Nishiki growing other area has been improving as well, I heard. Like Saga grown in Yamada Nishiki, or Fukuoka Yamada Nishiki. It's quite high quality, as well as Okayama. And so these each prefecture is striving to improve their Yamada Nishiki quality or any other local rice qualities to change the next Yamada Nishiki varietal. And Honda Kaicho was working on ion exchanger in the soil because he passed away. Do you know ion exchanger is affect the rice quality? Sorry, I don't know this thing. Honda Kaicho is actually a very legend in terms of kind of discovering the terroir of Hyogo Yamada Nishiki. He was a chairman of Honda Shuzo, the Tatsuriki sake in Hyogo, and he was for long years. I have his research of the terroir as well. So he's been really digging all the soils of the Hyogo prefectures, and they finding out the different content of the soils in each region. I'm not sure about these ion exchanges. If anybody know, you can comment. Sorry for them.
Natsuki, just so you know,
yes.
he was doing research and development with this company called Yanmar. Yanmar's famous for making the farming equipment that's harvesting and planting the rice, and they are continuing his research. So there's qualities to the soil that creates something that's beyond my scientific expertise, ion exchangers. And depending on what's happening at the microscopic level in the soil, research is suggesting that through ion exchangers, we can improve the quality of the soil, which will improve the quality of the rice. but
Interesting.
this is the extent of my
I hope
expertise on the
somebody is
topic.
continuing. I know Honda Kaicho passed away 3 years ago, 3 years ago. And yeah, I'm sure, I hope somebody's taking over this position to continue researching this as well. Koji-san asked about, I heard the sake brewery today trying to use table rice to make great Junmai Ginjo. Yes, actually more and more producers are, because of the diversification of sake now, many producers, and also they have great skills, great yeast strains, great koji strains as well. So all these are making it possible for them to make great sake with table rice. So I've tasted many Ginjo Daiginjo sake with table rice, and it tastes great. But I understand that might take a little bit more effort than using expensive Yamada Nishiki rice. Haruko-san, I know there are lots of other factors as well, but how would you describe the difference in the final sake products between Yamada Nishiki brewed sake and the Gohyaku Mangoku brewed sake? So as I mentioned earlier, it is quite difficult to blind taste the rice. So even if it's been made in the exact same conditions, choice of producer, if you are the producer, try to release the highly aromas using yeast ethanols. It is quite difficult to really see if it's making Yamada Nishiki or Gohyaku Mangoku, because mostly you're getting is the yeast aromas, I think. But if you are trying to make in a way that to show a rice characteristic more, I think Yamada Nishiki gives this more, to me personally, a little bit more well-rounded, and sake matures better than Gohyaku Mangoku. Gohyaku Mangoku to me is a very fresh, pure, clean style of sake that could give a slight dryness styles and has a nice melon touch to it. And Yamada Nishiki tend to have a little bit more lingering, softer lengths and elegance. I don't know, elegance is a bit difficult to describe what it is, but it feels very bright compared to other rice varietals from my experience. Could I have notes about sake because I was joined by late? You can see this on our YouTube. Should be released in a couple of days. Is Hyogo Boss quality and the volume leader? Yes, they are the biggest sake production area producer as well. Famous area is Nada region of Hyogo Prefecture. That's the biggest sake production area historically, and they are the top leader as well. So they got nice water, nice rice, and a lot of sake makers. Kensho in Spain is great table rice sake, Marisma. Yes, I visited there, and they have the nice rice fields, and they use their local rice to make their sake. And Seda Liquida is making Gohyaku Mangoku rice in Spain. That's a great news to hear. I think. Any other questions? Any thoughts on Yamada Nishiki for food, as this brewing season has meant a lot of spare grains? Yes, I know a lot of producers like Kuheiji, Dasai, they started selling Yamada Nishiki for eating to the consumers, because of the coronavirus, they are expected to not make sake for as a previous year, so they have a lot of rice that they contracted to buy. Not being able to make sake for this quantity, so they're selling it for eating. And I tasted Yamada Nishiki a few times. It's tasty. I had a nice risotto with Yamada Nishiki. Maybe if you're eating as a regular, like kind of sushi rice way, it's made in a kind of steam it in a regular steam rice, it might not be ideal, but yeah, making rice porridge or risotto, it's actually really tasty. It has a really nice umami, deep umami flavor to it too. So if you can get a hold of it, I highly suggested to get them. And I think it's a great time for the home brewer to get a hold of Yamada Nishiki from Japan as well. I think you can even buy them online from Japan. I'm not sure if they'll ship to overseas, but I know there are a lot of home brewers here making doburoku. So if you can get a hold of Yamada Nishiki from Kuheiji or any other producer selling them online to consumers, maybe you can get them it is quite expensive. Yes, that's right. But for the home brewing level, it might be a nice experiment to see how ideal rice it is. Okay. Any other comments or questions or?
Natsuki, I have a comment to make.
Yes.
I've been thinking about rice for 22 years, but only brewing it for 5 years. And one thing that struck me when I was working for Noguchi Toji, we got some excellent rice, and when it's delivered to the brewery, it typically sits for a week or even longer before we actually start brewing it. This is like a natural process. But if it happens to be raining, if there's a lot of moisture and humidity in the air, the best rice in the world is going to get affected before we even begin working with it, before we even open up the bag. Too much humidity in the air as a result of rain is going to play tricks on the rice before you actually start washing it and steaming it. And so there's so many challenges to getting the best rice to the brewery. And then if we have 3 or 4 rainy days, all of a sudden everybody's depressed because this could affect the quality of the rice, because the moisture that's ambient in the air is going into the rice too early. And during the washing and the soaking process of the rice, this affects how the moisture is going to be absorbed into the rice. So when we have really delicious sake, I think one of the things that's not mentioned enough is the climate had to be perfect at the brewery right before they began working with the rice. Otherwise, it becomes a trickier proposition.
Yeah, I understand that. Like farm, like even just to decide when to harvest, it's so stressful. You never know the typhoon might hit. It might gonna rain. If rains, it's not. You have to wait until it dries out. And you don't want to crop too early either. So I think it's very, very stressful time in an autumn, and to this, even if it's been cropped, as you mentioned, all this environment to make the best sake is really, thanks to all the efforts of the producer and the rice farmers too. And I was reading this book, and it has a lot of names of the farmers, and just the love for Yamada Nishiki and the farming. It's just striking, I think, to me, and that makes the sake so special. Thank you for sharing.
Right,
May I ask, who is the premier crew of, if Hyogo is the ground crew, what is the premier crew of Yamada Nishiki? Maybe
I'm not sure, apart from Hyogo Prefecture. I think the second biggest area is Okayama. I think it's the second biggest Yamada Nishiki destination, but also had the Fukuoka. It's quite nice. It's known for the quite good quality of Yamada Nishiki too. So I think these 2 prefectures are prefectures to watch for the Yamada Nishiki quality.
All right, I think we might have reached the end of the questions there. Some excellent questions and responses. I like the collaborative team response as well. So I think all that's left to say is thank you so much, Natsuki, for presenting that to us this evening. Thank you, everyone, for joining in and participating this evening. It's probably time to sign off here, but if you've got any other questions that you think of later, do feel free to send them over and we'll try and get answers back to you. And yeah, I hope you all found that as interesting as I did, and we'll look forward to more sake information in the future, hopefully.
Great. Thank you very much for everyone, and kanpai for Yamada Nishiki and kanpai for sake.